Great song, Something American by Jade Bird. We'll talk about it later. Hey guys, Miss B here. Welcome to this video. Today we'll be talking about chapter 26 through 28 of To Kill a Mockingbird. Very excited about that. But before that, I want to just do some quick announcements, quick housekeeping things. So last week I posted a video kind of explaining the future of English 11, both the final and what do I do with this study guide, as well as some smaller things. So if you haven't watched that, make sure to watch it. It's linked on Planbook. It's also linked down in the description. If you haven't watched that video, please watch it. Next, I posted, if you didn't notice, on Skyward an assignment called To Kill a Mockingbird Unit, and it's a 20-point assignment. I haven't graded it yet, so if you don't have a grade for that, do not feel badly about that. But basically, that assignment is going to be an explanation is going to be an indication of your involvement and engagement in the unit from my perspective. So if you haven't contacted me whatsoever since the school closed, you may have an indication on there that you have a missing assignment. I'll make a video on that, and I'll make sure to link that in the description of this video as well. But make sure that to be contacting me and letting me know that you are still engaged in this To Kill a Mockingbird unit. So today we'll be talking about chapters 26 through 28. Quite a tumultuous group of chapters, especially 28. So let's get into it. So in chapter 26, we see the kids going to school. We see that Scout is in 3rd grade now, so we know that 2 years have passed. If you remember correctly, at the beginning of the novel, she was in 1st grade, and now she's in 3rd. So if math serves me, she's 2 years older, right? And we know that at the beginning of the novel, it was set in 1934. So right now is around 1936, 1937. And so we're right in that middle of the Great Depression, which started in 1929, about 10 years long, about 1939. So we're right in the heart of the Great Depression. We're also about 2 to 3 years away from the beginning of World War II, which began September 1st, 1939. And it's also good to keep in mind that even though World War II has not began yet, Hitler is still very involved in the government of Germany. So that's why we see a little moment where they talk about Hitler in this book. So keep in mind the moments where the book references American culture at that time, as well as the world and its society, because those are important. So in chapter 26, sorry about that little tangent, in chapter 26, we see the kids walking to school. They walk past the Radley house, and Scout has a thought of like, ugh, I feel so bad. Like, she has this sense of remorse about bothering Boo Radley so much that summer prior, or that previous summer. And she has a regret, and she's like, I wonder how that made him feel. She starts to wonder and inquire about Boo Radley, and she hopes that he can get over maybe the stress that they put him through. Next, we move on to Scout, and we get a glimpse into her 3rd grade life. We meet her teacher, Miss Gates, and during our glimpse into their 3rd grade class, we see Miss Gates beginning a unit on current events. One of Scout's classmates, Cecil Jacobs, brings an article in about Hitler and what he is doing to Jewish people in Germany, and they're all appalled. They have this, like, this is kind of the first that they're hearing about this, and they have some opinions. And so prior to their conversation about the this article and kind of their opinions of and confusion that they have, the students' opinions and confusion, Miss Gates tells the difference between a democracy and a dictatorship, and she explains that in a democracy we cannot and do not persecute people based on prejudice. We know from reading this part of the chapter, or this part of the book, that is ironic and obviously used as a literary reference to the previous novels. Previous part of the novel. So I'm going to read a little moment from 329, starting in an inquiring soul. So just follow along. An inquiring soul in the middle of the room said, "Why don't they like the Jews, you reckon, Miss Gates?" "I don't know, Henry. They contribute to every society they live in, and most of all, they are a deeply religious people. Hitler's trying to do away with religion, so maybe he doesn't like them for that reason." Cecil spoke up. "Well, I don't know for certain," he said. They're supposed to change money or something, but they ain't no cause but that ain't no cause to persecute them. They're white, aren't they? So even in 3rd grade, we see that these kids already understand that prejudice is usually towards people of color. And they're confused how people can persecute people for being white. So that theme and that ingrained racism, institutional racism, is already ingrained in these kids, and we can see that through their responses towards this article about Hitler. So Scout then, like per usual, she brings this conversation home to talk to Atticus and Jem about it. And in the conversation, she was like, she asked Jem, like, is it okay to hate Hitler? And he says, it's not okay to hate anybody. And she's like, I don't really feel like, I have other thoughts, but I'm not really comfortable to talk to Atticus about it because they're regarding my teacher and I don't want to disrespect older people. So she brings this conversation to Jem. And in this conversation, she kind of asked Jem, like, is Miss Gates a good person? There's obviously a hang-up she has with Miss Gates. And she's like, trying to figure out, kind of trying to explore that hang-up that she has with Miss Gates. And she's like, she really hates Hitler. And Jem's like, what's wrong with that? And she's like, well, aren't you not supposed to hate anybody? Aren't you, like, even have, like, a bad thought about them? And he's like, of course you're not supposed to have bad thoughts about people, but what is eating you alive? And then on 331, we find out what's eating her alive. I'm going to start with Well. So this is Scout speaking. Well, coming out of the courthouse that night, Miss Gates she was going down the stairs in front of us. You must have not seen her. She was talking with Miss Stephanie Crawford. I heard her say it's time somebody taught them a lesson. They were getting way above themselves. And the next thing they think they can marry us. The next thing they think they can do is marry us. Jem, how can you hate Hitler so bad and turn around and be ugly about folks right at home? Big moment. Mark it. After this, we see Jem kind of say, I don't want to talk about it. If you continue to talk about the courthouse, I will not talk to you. And that's kind of the end of chapter 26. But this moment is pretty momentous, I would say. And this thought that Scout has is a pretty big thought. So keep that in mind. So we're moving on to chapter 27. We begin with Scout saying that 3 big things have happened since we last talked. It's October now. So three big things have happened. Bob Ewell got a job and then immediately lost it. And he blamed it on Atticus. He said it's Atticus's fault that he lost the job. But really he lost it because he's lazy. He lost it in 9 days because of laziness. The second thing is Judge Taylor, the judge from Tom Robinson's case. An intruder tried to break into his house, but he never found out who it was, and everybody assumed it was Bob Ewell. And the third thing is Bob Ewell harasses Helen Robinson on her way to work. So she works for a man named Link Dees. Link Dees was the employer of Tom Robinson before all of the awful stuff happened to him. And he offered Helen a cooking job at his house, but she had to walk past the Ewell property to get there. And she ended up taking a longer route every day and was almost late to work every day. And then she finally confessed that she was going the long way so she could avoid the Ewell house. And the harassment didn't stop until Link Dees approached Bob Ewell personally and threatened him. And was like, you can't be doing that, you scum of a human being, right? So after this, I want to go to 335 and read a quick passage from there. So this is a conversation between Aunt Alexandria and Atticus. And Aunt Alexandria is concerned because she's like, obviously Bob Ewell has hang-ups and these grudges against these people that were involved in the court case. And it's obvious that he has a grudge against you, too. So she's very afraid of that. So I want to start with, I don't like it, Atticus, right? On the top of 335, okay? This is Aunt Alexandria talking. I don't like it, Atticus. I don't like it at all, was Aunt Alexandria's assessment of these events. That man seems to have a permanent running grudge against everybody connected to that case. I know how that kind are about paying off grudges, but I don't understand why he should harbor one. He had his way in court, didn't he? I think I understand, said Atticus. It might be because he knows in his heart that very few people in Maycomb really believed him and Maella's yarns. He thought he'd be a hero, but all he got for his pain was, okay, he'll convict this Negro, but get back to your dump. He's had his fling with about everybody now, so he ought to be satisfied. He'll settle down when the weather changes. So here Atticus is saying Bob Ewell thought he was going to be a hero for bringing this African-American man to justice, but he ended up just being like, yeah, we'll do what we normally do by convicting African-American people, but you're not a hero. So he kind of didn't get his way, right? But then he also says, he's had enough. He's had enough revenge. He'll calm down when the weather changes. It's just because it's hot out, people are antsy. But this is also obviously a little bit of foreshadowing for the future. So we find out that, and then Scout brings up that there's a new Maycomb event regarding Halloween, a new Maycomb event. So she talks about how some kids went into Miss Tootie and Miss Trudy's house, and they're both deaf or at least hard of hearing, and during the night they took all of their furniture and put it in the cellar, and so now Miss Tootie and Miss Trudy want to start a new Halloween tradition, because it was Halloween night when those teenagers did that to them, move the furniture into the cellar, of course. And so they want to hold a pageant, a Halloween pageant, and a performance in it is called Ad Astra Per Aspera, which is Latin for to the stars through the difficulties. Okay? And in this performance, Scout is a ham. She is dressed up as a ham. And that kind of concludes chapter 27. She's excited to be a ham. And she's a ham, and people are other parts of the agriculture culture, because the Ad Astra Per Aspera performance is to honor the agriculture that keeps the economic parts of Maycomb running, right? So we see in this chapter that the tension is building, and we also see a little bit of reference to the Great Depression, as well as the build up to World War I. So we see some moments of reference to this time in the world. So moving on to chapter 28, big chapter, bold chapter, kind of a scary chapter. So this is the night of the play. Originally, Atticus was going to walk Scout, and then Ellen Alexandria is going to walk Scout, but Jem ended up walking Scout to the school, and it's nighttime, and they get there, and the play goes all right, except for a couple hiccups. Oh, sorry, going back a little bit. On their way to the play, Cecil Jacob spooks them. He goes, boo! And they get, they're like, spooky. But then it's just like a practical, quick little prank, and that's the end. So they walk to the school, the play happens, the Ad Astra Per Aspera play happens, and Scout misses her cue, so she's really sad, and Miss Merriweather says that she ruined the play, and she feels really bad, and Jem comforts her. So I wanted to just do I think there's a moment in there that I think is important. 347 is what the page I'm on, and I want to start with Miss Merriweather. 347, Miss Merriweather. Mrs. Merriweather seemed to have a hit. Everybody was cheering, but she caught me backstage and told me I ruined her pageant. She made me feel awful, but when Jem came to fetch me, he was sympathetic. He said he couldn't see my costume much from where he was sitting. How he could tell I was feeling bad under my costume, I don't know, but he said I did all right. I just came in a little late, that was all. Jem was becoming almost as good as Atticus at making me feel right when things were wrong. Almost. Not even Jem could make me go through that crowd, and he consented to wait backstage with me until the audience left. So, in this we see that Jem kind of has these traits that his father has of being empathetic, and that's awesome, and that's a good thing to keep in mind. So they stay back, wait for the crowd to leave. Scout's embarrassed, and it's kind of sad, because she made a little mistake. She was just a little late. She didn't hear her cue. So that's kind of what happens. And then after the crowd leaves, they begin to head home. Scout remembers she forgot her shoes. She's like, I forgot my shoes. We got to go back. So they turn around to go back, and then the school lights go off, and they're like, oh, we'll just get them tomorrow from a custodian. She's really worried. But then they're walking home. It's pitch black, nighttime, and they're getting a little nervous, and Jem hears something rustling behind them, so he stops her from talking, and hears something, and then she's like, what? And they think it's Cecil Jacobs trying to scare them again, and then they realize it's not Cecil. They scream out Cecil, and it's not Cecil. And so they start to run. Somebody's following them, and they start to run. So they run, and then Scout knocks over, and she's still in the ham suit. She can't see. She's still in the ham suit. She knocks over, and the man who is the stranger, but we know it's a man. The man gets a hold of Jem, and they start to scuffle. And then the attacker is flung to the ground. So there's a lot that happens here. Through it all, it's very traumatic. It's a very long scene. But through it all, Scout does not know what's going on. She can't see anything. She feels like her costume get crushed. She's trying to find Jem. She tries to find his foot. She touches him. She can't find him, and she hears them scuffling. And then she hears just like awful things happening to her brother, and she's so scared. And then and then all of a sudden, the attacker of Jem gets flung to the ground, and then she sees a man coughing by the tree, and then she sees the man pick up Jem and carry him home. And through that, Scout follows them home. They go home, and Jem is knocked out. Scout is mangled and cut from the chicken wire of her ham suit. It's a very kind of scary, traumatic thing that's happening. And we see that Dr. Reynolds and Mr. Tate are invited into the house to, take care of Jem, and Dr. Reynolds there to take care of Jem and check on Scout and get basically her statement. Mr. Tate, being the police in Maycomb, comes to take statements and all that good stuff. And I'm just gonna do one little passage on 354. One moment. Yeah, 354. So in this moment, this is right when Scout gets home, and Aunt Alexandria helps her out of the ham suit. And I'm going to start with, she left it at that. Actually, I'll start right at the beginning. No, darling. 354. No, darling. He's unconscious. He won't know how badly he's hurt until Dr. Reynolds gets here. Jean Louise, what happened? I don't know. She left it at that. She brought me something to put on, and I had thought about it, and then I would have never let her forget it. In her distraction, Auntie brought me overalls. Put these on, darling, she said, handing me the garment she most despised. She rushed back to Jem's room and then came to me in the hall. She patted me vaguely and went back to Jem's room. So in this moment, Aunt Alexandria brings Scout overalls after pushing her for so long to become more ladylike. So it's a sweet moment. Or is it a sweet moment? It's really up to you to decide, but I wanted to highlight that because I felt it to be significant. So Dr. Reynolds shows up, Mr. Tate shows up. Mr. Tate brings Atticus to the porch, and he says at the scene they found parts of Scout's dress and parts of her ham costume, and they also find Bob Ewell is dead, and he is stabbed under the ribs with a kitchen knife. And yep, he's dead, Mr. Finch. The last page, 357, very bottom. Mr. Tate found his neck and rubbed it. Bob Ewell's lying on the ground under the tree down yonder with a kitchen knife stuck up under his ribs. He's dead, Mr. Finch. And that's the end of chapter 28. So Bob Ewell's dead. We know that. And that's kind of where we're left hanging for chapter 28. We're going to be finishing the chapter 29 30 and 31, so we'll be finished with the novel next week. So keep that in mind. Make sure to keep looking on your plan book. Keep working hard. For those who have been doing that plan book, you've been doing awesome. I love it. And I've been trying to comment on your flip grids, so let me know if that is good feedback. I'm really loving watching your videos. So, chapter 26 to 28. Here are the essential questions. 1. In chapter 26, the novel discusses the current events within the world. Do you believe this relates to the events of the novel? How? 2. What does ad astra per aspera mean, and how does it relate to the novel? Chapter 27. That's in chapter 27. How does it relate to the novel? How does this Latin phrase relate to the novel? 3. Bob Ewell is a key character in these 3 chapters. What is his true vendetta against the people of the trial? So what's his true vendetta? What's his intention of this vendetta? Why does he want revenge so bad? And that's just a good question. All right. 4. We discussed the idea of coming of age novels last week. In contrast, do you believe that the adults of the novel can / have changed? Justify your answer. So have the adults in the novel had change at all, do you think? Keep that in mind. How would you justify if they have or have not made change? So those are the essential questions of the week. Song of the day. Song of the day is Something American by Jade Bird. Such a good song. Played at the beginning of just makes me happy. It's a good song. Kind of sad, kind of about heartbreak, but still cool. Anyway, just wanted to share that one. And my advice of the day is keep on trucking. You are so close to the end of the year. You are doing awesome. We're in May. Happy May. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Eat some salsa tonight. Unless you don't like cilantro, then I have the soap gene. I don't like cilantro, but keep on trucking. You're doing so good. You're so close. Do not give up now. That's kind of my advice of the day. So thank you so much. I know this video kind of ran long, but that's kind of what I have for the week, and I'm excited to hear your Flipgrid discussion posts, and let me know if you have any questions. All right, bye guys.